The council chamber stretched high above the marble floor, its walls decorated with symbols from 100 different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated seats, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with their own inner light. They had gathered here on Valorum Prime for 3,000 years, keeping peace among the worlds. Today, there was no peace in the chamber. Toran stood at the center platform, his tall frame rigid with frustration. His skin shimmered blue under the lights, and his forearms gestured sharply as he spoke. The Devourers have taken 12 worlds in 6 months. Our fleets cannot stop them. Every strategy fails. Mira, the Velkari military commander, projected a hologram above the platform. It showed a dark mass spreading across star systems like ink in water. They adapt to everything we throw at them. Plasma weapons, kinetic strikes, biological attacks, nothing works twice. They learn and evolve. A representative with crystalline features spoke up. We need new tactics, different approaches. We've tried everything, Toran said firmly. Our best minds have found no solution. An old archivist named Kelvin shuffled forward. He was small and gray, his body bent with age. In his hands, he carried an ancient data crystal. Perhaps we haven't looked far enough back. The chamber fell silent. Kelvin placed the crystal into the projector. Symbols appeared in the air, written in languages most species had forgotten. 3,000 years ago, before the Council existed, the galaxy was at war. Records speak of an enemy similar to the Devourers. They called them the Swarm. World after world fell until one species stopped them. Kelvin paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. Humans! Laughter erupted across the chamber. Toran's face twisted in disbelief. The bedtime story? The myth we tell children about the warrior ghosts? I thought humans were invented to scare us into behaving, another representative said, chuckling. Kelvin stood his ground. The records are real. Humans existed. They fought the swarm and won. Then they vanished. These coordinates mark their last known location. He pointed to a section of space on the map, far from Council territory, a quarantine zone. Sealed and forgotten, Mira leaned forward, studying the data. Even if this is real, they're probably extinct. 3,000 years is a long time. Or they're still there, Kelvin said quietly. The records indicate they sealed themselves away intentionally. Toran shook his head. This is foolishness. We cannot base our survival on fairy tales. Can we afford not to look? Mira asked. If there's even a chance of what? Finding ruins, empty worlds. Toran's voice echoed through the chamber. We should focus our resources on real solutions. The debate continued for hours. Some supported the expedition. Others called it a waste of time and ships. Finally, after much argument, the council voted. By a narrow margin, they agreed to send a small exploration fleet to the coordinates. Mira volunteered to lead the expedition herself. If humans exist, we'll find them. If they don't, we'll know for certain and can stop wasting time on legends. 3 weeks later, Mira's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the quarantine zone. 7 ships, their sensors sweeping the darkness for any sign of life. Nothing on scanners, her navigation officer reported. Wait, there's something. A boundary marker. Very old, they moved closer. A satellite, ancient but still functional, broadcast a message in a language the computer couldn't translate immediately. After several minutes, the system found a match in the oldest databases. The message was simple. Turn back. This space is restricted. Should we proceed, Commander? Her pilot asked. Mira stared at the message. Someone had built that satellite. Someone maintained it. We go forward carefully. The fleet pushed deeper into the zone. Systems became more common. Debris from old battles floated in the void. Then they detected something that made everyone freeze. Energy signatures. Power sources. Lots of them. There's a planet ahead, sensors reported. Breathable atmosphere. Cities. The signatures indicate. Commander, there are billions of life forms down there. Mira couldn't believe it. Show me. The screen displayed a blue and green world, beautiful and alive. Lights dotted the night side like jewels. Ships moved between the planet and its moon. Space stations orbited in perfect formation. They're here, Mira whispered. Humans are real. Suddenly, alarms blared across the fleet. 20 warships appeared around them. Weapons charged and ready. They had been hiding, invisible, until they chose to reveal themselves. A transmission came through. The face that appeared on screen was human. Smooth skin, dark eyes, black hair. young but confident. The universal translator struggled for a moment, then locked onto the language. You have entered Earth defense space without permission. State your purpose or leave immediately. Mira raised her hands in a peaceful gesture. I am Commander Mira of the Velkari Empire. We come seeking help. The galaxy is under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. Our records say humans once fought a similar threat. The humans' expression didn't change. We know nothing of your galaxy. We chose isolation long ago. Please, Mira said. Billions will die if we fail. The old records speak of humanity's courage and skill. We need that now. The transmission cut off. Mira's fleet waited, surrounded by human warships. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, another transmission arrived. This time, a different human appeared. Older, with streaks of gray in her hair. She wore formal clothes that seemed diplomatic. I am Hana, representative of the Earth Council. Your arrival has caused much debate among our people. We remember why we left the galaxy. War nearly destroyed us. We swore never to fight again. I understand, Mira said. But sometimes isolation is not possible. Sometimes we must fight or watch others suffer. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Send one ship to the surface. We will hear your request. But we promise nothing. Mira's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere alone. She saw cities that stretched for miles, forests and oceans, mountains and plains. The planet was thriving. Whatever humans had been 3,000 years ago, they had rebuilt into something strong. They landed at a military base. Soldiers watched from every angle, their weapons ready but not aimed. Mira noticed their eyes, alert, calculating, missing nothing. A man in uniform approached. He was compact and muscular, with scars on his hands that spoke of combat. His face was hard but not cruel. I am Daewon, Special Forces Commander, he said. Follow me. They entered a conference room where Hana waited with several others. Military officers, scientists, politicians, all human, all watching Mira with careful attention. Mira presented everything. The Devourer threat, the failed strategies, the spreading darkness. She showed them the data, the projections, the estimates of how many would die. When she finished, silence filled the room. Why should we care? One officer asked bluntly. This is not our war. Because evil that consumes one world will eventually consume all worlds, Hana said softly. That is the lesson we learned in our own dark times. Daewon studied the tactical data. Their adaptation speed is impressive. Standard military doctrine would fail. He looked up at Mira. The Council doesn't believe in us, does it? They think we're a myth. Mira hesitated, then nodded. Many do. Yet you came anyway. Because even myths can offer hope when hope is all that remains. Daewon exchanged glances with Hana. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Hana spoke. We will send a delegation to your council. We will assess this threat. But understand, we make no promises of war. Humanity learned the cost of violence. We will not repeat our mistakes lightly. I ask for nothing more, Mira said. 3 days later, Mira's fleet left Earth with 3 human ships, small vessels, strange in design, carrying diplomats and soldiers, carrying people the galaxy thought were legends, carrying humanity back to the stars they had abandoned so long ago. Toran would not believe this. The Council would struggle to accept it. But Mira had seen their cities, their strength, their readiness. Humans were real. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy had found its answer. The journey to Valorum Prime took 2 weeks. Daewon spent most of that time studying the information Mira had provided about the Devourers. He sat in the small quarters of the human ship, screens floating around him showing attack patterns and fleet movements. Hana found him there late one night. You should rest. I'm seeing patterns, Daewon said, not looking up. The way they move? The way they adapt. I've seen this before. In the old records, in training simulations. We built them from the swarm data our ancestors left behind. He finally looked at her. If the Devourers are truly similar, the Council is fighting them all wrong. Hana sat down beside him. The question is whether they'll listen to us. They think we're myths, Daewon said. Even Mira seemed surprised we existed. How do we convince them to trust our strategies? We do what we've always done. We show them the truth through our actions. Behind them, Jiwon entered the room carrying 3 cups of tea. He was younger than both of them, with quick hands and quicker mind. The Velkari ships are beautiful but inefficient. Their design prioritizes appearance over function. Different cultures, different values, Hana reminded him. I know. I'm just saying if they let me look at their engines, I could improve efficiency by 30%. Jiwan grinned. Maybe that would convince them we're worth listening to. Or they'll think you're insulting them, Daewan said. But he smiled slightly. They arrived at Valorum Prime on a clear morning. The planet was massive, its cities gleaming towers that reached into the clouds. Thousands of ships moved through orbital traffic lanes. It was beautiful and overwhelming. Mira's fleet received clearance to land at the Council spaceport. As the human ships descended, they could see crowds gathering. News of their arrival had spread quickly. They're staring, Jiwan observed. We're supposed to be extinct, Hana said. I imagine we're quite the spectacle. They landed on a platform designated for diplomatic vessels. When the doors opened, hundreds of aliens waited beyond security barriers. Camera drones floated everywhere. The noise was incredible. Toran stood at the front of the official greeting party, his expression carefully neutral. Other council members flanked him, representing a dozen different species. Hana stepped out first, followed by Daewan and their small delegation. The crowd's noise increased. Some shouted questions. Others simply stared in disbelief. Toran approached, his forearms held in a formal position. Welcome to Valorum Prime. I am Council Speaker Toran. Your arrival has caused quite the sensation. We understand, Hana said calmly. Being a myth come to life tends to have that effect. If Toran caught the dry humor in her voice, he didn't show it. The council will convene tomorrow to hear your testimony. Until then, quarters have been prepared for you. As they walked through the spaceport, Daewan noticed the security. Dozens of guards, all armed, all watching. Some looked curious. Others looked suspicious. They don't trust us, he said quietly to Hana. Would you if the situation was reversed? Their quarters were luxurious but clearly monitored. Cameras in every room, guards outside every door. They were guests but also prisoners of a sort. That night, Daewan couldn't sleep. He stood at the window looking out at the alien city. Somewhere out there, the devourers were coming. Time was running out. A soft knock came at his door. He opened it to find Mira standing there alone. May I come in? She asked. Daewan stepped aside. Mira entered and the door closed behind her. I wanted to thank you, she said, for coming. Many in the council oppose this. They still think humans are either weak or a threat. What do you think? I think you're neither. Mira moved to the window, standing beside him. I've been studying your history. What records we have. You fought yourselves nearly to extinction, then chose peace. That takes more strength than endless war. We learned the hard way, Daewan said. We almost destroyed everything that mattered. When we finally stopped, we swore we'd never let it happen again. Yet here you are, ready to fight again. Fighting to protect others is different than fighting to conquer them. Mira was quiet for a moment. Tomorrow will be difficult. Toran and many others will try to discredit you. They fear what they don't understand. Then we'll help them understand. The next morning, the council convened in their grand chamber. Every seat was filled. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness this historic moment. Hana stood at the center platform, calm and composed despite thousands of eyes watching her. Daewan stood beside her, along with two other human military advisors. Toran opened the session. We are here to hear testimony from the humans regarding the Devourer threat. Let it be known that this council has not agreed to any alliance or military cooperation. This is merely an exchange of information. Hana nodded. We understand. We came to learn and to offer what knowledge we have. She presented Earth's analysis of the Devourer attacks, their adaptation patterns, their resource consumption, their seemingly endless numbers. It was information the council already had, but seeing it through human eyes revealed new perspectives. Then Daewan spoke. The Devourers are not unbeatable, but you cannot fight them with conventional tactics. Every time you use the same strategy twice, they learn. They evolve. You must be more unpredictable than they are. Easy to say, Toran interrupted, but our military has thousands of years of experience. Our strategies have won countless battles, against enemies that fight like you do, Daewan said. The Devourers don't, they're more like a force of nature. You don't defeat nature by being stronger. You defeat it by being smarter. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives looked thoughtful. Others looked offended. One representative stood up. You speak of tactics, but we've seen no proof of human capability. Why should we believe you can succeed where we have failed? Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. A hologram appeared showing a star system at the edge of council space. The Devourers are attacking Kepler Station, an officer announced. 3 colony worlds. 500,000 inhabitants. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Torin called for order, his voice barely heard over the noise. Mira stood up. We need to respond immediately. I'll take the defense fleet. I'm coming with you, Daewon said. The chamber fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. Absolutely not, Torin said. We don't need human interference in our military operations. Then people will die, Daewon said simply. I've studied your defense patterns. The Devourers have adapted to them. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. Defeat. And you can do better? Torin's voice was mocking. Let me try. Mira looked at Daewon, then at Torin. I'm authorizing human participation. Commander Daewon and a small team will deploy with my forces. This is against protocol, Torin protested. Protocol hasn't saved any worlds yet, Mira said coldly. Perhaps it's time we tried something new. Within an hour, Mira's fleet was ready to launch. Daewon's team included 15 human soldiers, all veterans, all trained for exactly this kind of mission. Jiwon came too, bringing technical expertise. As they boarded the transport, Hana gripped Daewon's arm. Be careful. You're carrying all of humanity's reputation with you. No pressure, then, he said with a slight smile. The journey to Kepler Station took 6 hours at maximum speed. During that time, Daewon briefed the Velkari officers on his plan. Most of them listened politely but skeptically. They had fought the Devourers before. They knew what worked and what didn't, except nothing had worked. When they arrived, the situation was worse than reported. The Devourers had already landed on 2 of the 3 colony worlds. Their forces consumed everything in their path, growing stronger with each victory. Standard defense formation, the Velkari fleet commander ordered. No, Daewon said. That's what they expect. What do you suggest? Daewon pulled up a tactical display. We split into small groups. Hit them from multiple angles. Never the same approach twice. Confuse their adaptation protocols. That's suicide, one officer said. We'll be outnumbered. You're already outnumbered. But you're not outthought. Not yet, Mira made the decision. We do it the human way. All units break formation, execute scattered assault pattern. What happened next would be talked about for years. The human team deployed to the surface while Velkari ships attacked from orbit in seemingly random patterns. D1's soldiers moved through the combat zone like shadows, striking where the Devourers were weakest, vanishing before they could adapt. They didn't try to win. They tried to survive and hurt the enemy enough to slow them down. It worked. The Devourer advance stalled. Their adaptation couldn't keep up with tactics that changed every few minutes. The colonies were evacuated successfully. Not a total victory, but not a loss either. When they returned to Valorum Prime, something had changed. The mockery was gone. In its place was curiosity and, in some respect, Toron still opposed them. But now others weren't so sure. Maybe humans weren't myths. Maybe they were exactly what the galaxy needed. The success at Kepler Station didn't change everything. It changed enough. In the weeks that followed, Daewon and his team remained on Valorum Prime. They gave presentations to military commanders, showed tactical demonstrations, and tried to convince a skeptical galaxy that humanity's methods could work on a larger scale. Some listened. Most didn't. Torin became their loudest opponent. He spoke in council sessions, gave interviews to news outlets, and gathered support from conservative representatives who feared change. One lucky battle doesn't prove anything, Torin said during a particularly heated session. The humans got fortunate. Their tactics are reckless and undisciplined. We cannot base our defense on chaos. Hana stood to respond. It's not chaos. It's adaptability. The difference is intent and control. Words, Torin dismissed. Our methods have protected this galaxy for 3,000 years. And yet 12 worlds have fallen in 6 months, Hana said quietly. How many more before we admit the old ways aren't working? The debate continued without resolution. The council was split. Some wanted to embrace human strategies. Others clung to tradition. Meanwhile, Day One trained with Velkari soldiers. Most were polite but distant. They watched his methods with curiosity, but rarely participated fully. He was teaching them to think differently, and thinking differently was uncomfortable. One officer did engage fully. His name was Boran, a Thaxian general whose homeworld had been destroyed by the Devourers. He was large and bear-like, with thick fur and sad eyes that had seen too much loss. "Show me everything," Boran said. "I don't care if it's unconventional. I care if it works." Day One respected that. He spent long hours with Boran explaining not just tactics but philosophy. "You have to think like water," he said. "Water doesn't fight the rock. It flows around it. Over time it wins." "Poetic," Boran rumbled. "But can poetry save worlds?" "Philosophy shapes strategy. Strategy wins wars." Boran smiled grimly. "Then teach me this philosophy." Jiwan, meanwhile, had made friends in the engineering sectors. The Velkari technology was advanced but rigid. Everything followed strict design protocols. Jiwan saw inefficiencies everywhere. "You're wasting 40% of your engine output on redundant systems," he explained to a group of Velkari engineers. "Streamline the power flow and you increase speed without adding mass." "That's not how it's done," one engineer protested. "The redundancies ensure safety." "They ensure mediocrity," Jiwan said. "Safety is important, but you're fighting a war. Sometimes you need speed more than comfort." Word of these conversations spread. Some saw Jiwan as helpful. Others saw him as arrogant. The humans were disrupting comfortable certainties, and not everyone appreciated it. Then news arrived that changed everything. The Devourers were moving toward Thaxia, the industrial heart of the Council. If it fell, the galaxy's ability to produce weapons and ships would be crippled. Thaxia was home to 8 billion people across 3 continents. It was vital. The Council assembled an enormous defense fleet. 200 warships, the largest force they had ever gathered. Every major species contributed vessels. It was supposed to be an overwhelming show of strength. Mira was given command. She immediately requested human participation. Toran opposed it viciously. "We are putting our greatest fleet at risk. We cannot let unproven aliens dictate strategy." "They've proven themselves once," Mira said. "Once. Against a minor force at a minor colony. This is Thaxia. We need certainty, not experiments." The Council voted. It was close, but Toran won. The defense of Thaxia would follow traditional Council military doctrine. Humans could observe but not command. Day One watched the vote with cold eyes. "They're making a mistake." "They're afraid," Hana said. "Fear makes people cling to what they know even when it's failing. Fear is going to get millions killed." The fleet departed for Thaxia. Day One and his team went along as observers, their authority stripped away. Mira apologized privately, but the decision was made. The journey took 5 days. During that time, Day One studied every piece of intelligence about the approaching Devourer force. The numbers were terrifying. They were sending everything they had. "This isn't a raid," he told Mira. "This is an extermination force. They want to break you here. Then we'll break them instead. With orbital bombardment and defensive screens. That's what you've done before. It hasn't worked." "I know," Mira said, frustration clear in her voice. "But my hands are tied. The Council expects traditional deployment." Day One wanted to argue, but what good would it do? The decision was made by people far from the battlefield. They arrived at Thaxia to find the planet already preparing for siege. Orbital stations were armed and ready. Defense platforms surrounded the world in layers. The Council fleet took up positions in a carefully planned formation. It looked impressive. It looked unstoppable. Day One thought it looked like a target. The Devourers arrived 16 hours later. Their fleet was enormous, 300 vessels of varying sizes. They moved in perfect synchronization, like a school of predatory fish. "All units maintain formation," the fleet commander ordered. "Fire on my mark." The Council fleet opened fire. Plasma beams and kinetic missiles crossed the void in a spectacular display. Many Devourer ships were destroyed in the first volley. Then they adapted. The second volley was less effective. The third even less. By the fourth, the Devourers had adjusted their shields to deflect most of the damage. They pushed forward relentlessly. "They're not even slowing down," someone said in disbelief. The Devourers reached the first defensive line and tore through it. Ships exploded. Stations crumbled. The careful formation began to fall apart as captains panicked. "Reform the line," the commander shouted. "Hold position. But the Devourers were already past them, moving toward the planet itself. Drop pods launched from their ships carrying invasion forces to the surface. Daewon watched from the observation deck of Mira's flagship, his fists clenched. This was exactly what he had predicted, exactly what he had warned them about. "We need to change tactics," he said to Mira. "I can't. Council orders. Council orders are killing your people." Mira looked at him, then at the battle unfolding on the screens. Ships dying, stations falling, Thaxia's orbital defenses crumbling. She made a decision that would define her career. "Daewon, you have command of our tactical operations. All ships under my direct authority will follow your orders." "Commander," her second officer protested. "You can't, I just did." "Daewon, what do you need?" "Break formation. Stop trying to protect everything and start targeting what matters. Go for their coordination ships. Make them respond to us instead of executing their plan." Mira nodded. "All ships in Group 7, you're with us. Everyone else, I'm sorry." She opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Commander Mira. I'm taking my task force on an independent operation. I am disobeying direct orders to do this. Any ship that wants to join me, I won't hold it against you. But we're doing this the human way." For a moment, nothing happened. Then one ship broke formation and joined them. Then another. Then 20 more. Boren's voice came over the channel. "I'm with you, Commander. All Thaxian forces are with you. They had 60 ships against 300. It should have been suicide." Daewon coordinated them like a conductor with an orchestra. No two ships used the same approach. They hit fast and withdrew faster. They targeted the larger Devourer vessels that seemed to be coordinating the others. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Purposeful chaos. The Devourers tried to adapt, but they couldn't predict what was coming next. Every attack was different. Every retreat led them into new traps. G1 modified weapons on the fly, changing energy frequencies and delivery methods between volleys. They can adapt to patterns, but not if there's no pattern to learn. The battle raged for 12 hours. Ships were lost on both sides, but the Devourers' advance slowed. Their coordination broke down. They began making mistakes. On the ground, the situation was equally desperate. Devourer forces had landed in 3 major cities. They consumed everything in their path, growing stronger and more numerous. Standard military response was to evacuate and bomb from orbit. Daewon ordered something different. Send ground forces into the cities, fight them street by street, use the environment against them. "That's insane," a Velkari general said. "We'll lose thousands of soldiers." "You'll lose billions of civilians if the Devourers take the planet," Daewon replied. "Trust me." Boren didn't hesitate. "My troops will deploy." They dropped into the cities in small teams. Humans mixed with Thaxians and Velkari and a dozen other species. They fought like guerrillas, using buildings for cover, leading the Devourers into ambushes, denying them the open battle they were adapted for. It was brutal. The casualties were high. But it worked. The Devourers' ground forces became scattered and confused. They couldn't adapt to urban warfare that changed with every block. In orbit, Daewon's fleet identified the main Devourer command ship. It was massive and heavily defended, surrounded by 50 escort vessels. "We need to destroy that ship," Daewon said. "It's their central brain." "We'll never get through their defenses," Mira said. G1 spoke up. "What if we don't try to get through? What if we go under?" He explained his plan rapidly. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It might work. "Do it," Daewon ordered. 20 human and Velkari ships dove toward the planet. 3 months after the first battle, the Devourers returned to Thaxia. This time they brought their entire force. Every ship they had. Every soldier. Every weapon. They weren't raiding. They were coming to finish what they started. The intelligence reports were clear and terrifying. The enemy fleet numbered over 800 vessels. Ground forces were estimated in the millions. They would hit Thaxia with everything, and they wouldn't stop until the planet was consumed. The council chambers were quiet as the reports were presented. Everyone understood what this meant. Thaxia was the test. If it fell, other core worlds would follow. The galaxy would collapse piece by piece. Daewon stood at the strategy table with Mira, Boren, and the other military commanders. They had been planning for weeks, knowing this attack was coming. "We can't evacuate 8 billion people in time," Mira said. "We have to defend the planet." "We'll need every ship," Boren added. "Every soldier. Everything we have." Day 1 studied the map showing Thaxia's cities and defenses. It won't be enough. Even with everything, we're outnumbered 3-1. Then what do we do? A Velkari admiral asked. We change the game, Day 1 said. They expect us to defend from orbit like before. We don't do that. We let them land. The room erupted in protest. Multiple voices shouted at once, let them land? Mira stared at him. They'll consume the cities. Not if we control where they land. Not if we turn those cities into traps. Day 1 pulled up detailed maps of Thaxia's 3 major population centers. We evacuate civilians to these fortified zones. Then we use the cities as hunting grounds. Urban warfare on that scale will be a nightmare, Boren said, but his tone was thoughtful rather than dismissive. It will be, Day 1 agreed. For them, they're adapted to fighting in space and on open ground. Cities are chaotic, unpredictable. It negates their numbers advantage. Hana had been quiet, listening. Now she spoke. You're proposing we sacrifice the cities to save the people. Buildings can be rebuilt. People can't be brought back to life. The debate lasted for hours. Some commanders agreed with the plan. Others thought it was insane. But time was running out and nobody had a better idea. Finally, Mira made the decision. We do it. Start evacuating civilians immediately. Military forces prepare for urban defense. Jiwan was tasked with modifying Thaxia's planetary defenses. He worked around the clock, changing shield frequencies and weapon systems. We can't stop them from landing, but we can control where they land. I'll set up false weak points in the defensive grid. They'll go for those areas. And we'll be waiting, Day 1 said. The next 2 weeks were chaos. 8 billion people had to be moved to secure locations. Military supplies were distributed throughout the cities. Traps were set, ambush points prepared. Every street became a potential battlefield. Earth sent reinforcements. 50 ships and 5,000 soldiers, all volunteers. It wasn't many compared to the enemy, but they were trained specifically for this kind of fighting. Among them was Yuna, an intelligence officer Day 1 had worked with before. She was young but brilliant at psychological operations. I've studied the Devourer patterns, she told him. They're aggressive but predictable in their aggression. We can use that. Show me, Yuna explained her analysis. The Devourers always attack the same way. Overwhelming force, direct assault, consume everything. They never retreated, never hesitated. That was their strength, but it could also be their weakness. If we make them commit to an attack, they won't pull back even when it's obviously a trap. Their adaptation is tactical, not strategic. They'll keep trying to make the same approach work. So we create situations where their strength becomes a liability. Exactly. The Devourer fleet arrived on a gray morning. They came out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and moved toward Thaxia without slowing. No communication, no demands, just death approaching. The Council fleet met them in orbit. 400 ships, everything they could gather. It was the largest fleet in Council history. It still wasn't enough. Mira stood on her flagship's bridge watching the enemy approach. All ships, defensive formation. Make them work for every meter. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. The space between fleets lit up with weapons discharge. Ships on both sides exploded. The Devourers pushed forward relentlessly. They're not even trying to be clever, Mira's tactical officer observed. Just brute force. They don't need to be clever when they have this many ships, Mira said. Hold the line as long as possible. For 6 hours, the fleet fought in orbit. They destroyed Devourer ships by the dozens, but more kept coming. Slowly, inevitably, the Council fleet was pushed back. They're launching dropships, sensors reported. Thousands of them. Let them come, Day 1 said calmly. He was in the operations center on Thaxia's surface, coordinating ground forces. Jiwan, activate the channeling protocols. Jiwan's modifications to the planetary shields created corridors where the shields were weaker. The Devourer dropships naturally aimed for these areas, thinking they'd found gaps in the defense. They landed in the cities exactly where Day 1 wanted them. The first wave of Devourer soldiers emerged from their ships into streets lined with abandoned buildings. For a moment, nothing happened. The aliens began advancing, searching for resistance. Then the buildings exploded. Charges planted throughout the structures brought them down on top of the advancing enemy. Thousands died in the first minutes. The survivors pushed forward, adapting to the threat of collapsing buildings. That's when the ground forces opened fire. Human and Velkari and Thaxian soldiers attacked from every angle. Rooftops, windows, underground tunnels. They fired and relocated before the Devourers could respond. Hit and fade, strike and disappear. The Devourers tried to adapt, spreading out to cover more area. That just made them easier targets for the snipers Day One had positioned throughout the cities. They're learning to spread out, Boren reported from his position, but that slows their advance. Good, Day One said. Time is our ally now. In orbit, the fleet battle was going badly. The Council ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Mira's flagship took heavy damage, fires burning on multiple decks. Commander, we need to retreat. Her second officer shouted over the alarms. No, Mira said. If we pull back, they'll focus everything on the ground forces. We stayed. Jiwan had an idea. What if we don't retreat up? What if we retreat down? He explained quickly. The Council ships could use the planet's atmosphere for cover. The Devourers would have to risk hitting their own ground forces to pursue. Do it, Mira ordered. The fleet descended into Thaxia's upper atmosphere, using the planet itself as a shield. The Devourers followed, but cautiously. Their orbital bombardment became less effective, afraid of hitting their own troops. On the ground, the battle intensified. More dropships landed. More Devourer soldiers poured into the cities. The fighting became desperate and bloody. Day One moved between command posts, coordinating the defense. He was everywhere at once, plugging gaps in the line, rallying tired soldiers, adjusting tactics as the Devourers adapted. In the eastern city, a breakthrough threatened. Thousands of Devourer soldiers punched through the defensive line and began pushing toward the civilian shelters. Boren led a desperate counterattack. His Thaxian warriors fought with fury, knowing their people were behind them. The combat was hand-to-hand in places, brutal and savage. We can't hold, someone shouted. We have to, Boren roared back. He grabbed a rifle from a fallen soldier and fired into the advancing mass. For Thaxia, the line held barely, but casualties were mounting. Medical stations overflowed with wounded. Supplies ran low. UNA coordinated psychological operations, broadcasting messages designed to frustrate the Devourers. You're losing. You're weak. You can't adapt fast enough. It was propaganda, but it worked. The Devourers became more aggressive, more reckless, easier to lead into traps, but it still wasn't enough. The sheer numbers were overwhelming. For every Devourer killed, 2 more appeared. We're losing ground, Day One admitted to Hana over a secure channel. We're hurting them, but they're still advancing. The civilians? Hana asked. She was in the central command bunker, coordinating the evacuation efforts. Still safe for now. But if we can't stop this push, we'll be overrun in 6 hours. Hana was quiet for a moment. Then we need to change the game again. I'm open to suggestions. The Devourers have a command structure, right? Something coordinating this assault? Yes, but it's in orbit, surrounded by their fleet. We can't reach it. What if we don't have to reach it? What if we can disrupt it from here? Day One understood immediately. Electronic warfare. If we can jam their communications, we have to find the frequency first, G1 interrupted, joining the channel. But I think I can do it. Give me an hour. You have 30 minutes, Day One said. G1 worked frantically, analyzing every Devourer transmission they'd captured. He found patterns in the noise, repeating signals that had to be command and control. Got it, he shouted.
Broadcasting jamming signal now.
The effect was immediate. The coordinated Devourer assault became disorganized. Units stopped receiving orders. They began acting independently, which made them predictable. All forces counterattack now, Day One ordered. Hit them while they're confused. The ground forces surged forward. They reclaimed lost territory. The months after the Battle of Thaxia brought changes across the entire galaxy. The council chambers on Valorum Prime looked different now. New faces filled seats where old ones had sat for centuries. The rigid hierarchy that had governed for 3,000 years was being rebuilt into something more flexible. Day One stood before the assembly, not as a visitor, but as a full member. Earth had been granted immediate membership, and he had been chosen to represent humanity's interests. It was a position he never wanted, but duty called. The Devourers have retreated to the Outer Rim, he explained, projecting maps showing enemy positions. They're rebuilding their forces. Our intelligence estimates they'll be ready to attack again in 6 months. 6 months isn't much time, a council member said nervously. It's enough, Mira said. She sat at the military command table, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Council Forces. If we use it wisely, the Council had learned its lesson. When Mira and Daewon presented their plan for a joint military academy, it passed unanimously. When they requested resources to train mixed-species units using human tactics, they received twice what they asked for. The galaxy had finally understood that survival meant change. Ji-Won worked with engineering teams from 20 different worlds, combining technologies in new ways. Felkari power systems with human adaptability, Thaxian materials with Earth manufacturing methods. The results were revolutionary. "Look at this," he showed Daewon one day, presenting a new ship design. Half the size of a standard cruiser, twice the speed, and weapons that can reconfigure mid-battle. "We can build these in a third of the time. How many can we produce in 6 months? If every shipyard cooperates?" 500, Daewon smiled. "That's a start." Hana focused on the diplomatic side. She traveled to dozens of worlds, meeting with leaders, building alliances, creating networks of communication and trust. Humanity's isolation had taught them the importance of connection. She used that knowledge now. On a planet called Rilan, she met with a species that had remained neutral throughout the war. They were peaceful traders, unwilling to take sides. "We don't fight," their leader explained. "It's not our way." "I'm not asking you to fight," Hana said. "But you have the fastest ships in the galaxy. We need those ships to move supplies, evacuate civilians, carry intelligence. That's not fighting. That's saving lives." The Rilan leader thought about it. "You make a persuasive argument. I make a truthful one. When the Devourers come again, they won't care that you're neutral. They'll consume you like everyone else." One by one, reluctant species joined the alliance. Not all of them contributed soldiers, but they all contributed something. Resources, ships, intelligence, medical support. The galaxy was uniting in ways it never had before. Training camps appeared on 100 worlds. Human instructors taught alien soldiers the philosophy of adaptive combat. It wasn't about being stronger. It was about being smarter, faster, more unpredictable. Boren ran the largest training center on Thaxia. The cities were still being rebuilt, but the military facilities were operational. He pushed his students hard, demanding they forget everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Your instinct is to meet force with force," he told a class of Velkari recruits. "That's wrong. Meet force with movement, with deception, with intelligence." One recruit raised a hand. "But we've always fought this way. And you've always lost to the Devourers," Boren said bluntly. "Want to keep losing?" The recruit looked down. "No, sir." "Then listen to what the humans teach. They were myths because they were too good at war. So good they scared themselves and walked away. Now they're back, and we're lucky they're on our side." Among the trainees were soldiers who had mocked humanity months before. Now they hung on every word, desperate to learn. Pride was a luxury the galaxy could no longer afford. Yuna established an intelligence network that spanned council space. Human psychological operations combined, with alien surveillance technology, created an information system unlike anything that had existed before. "We're not just fighting the Devourers," she explained to her team. "We're fighting their ability to adapt. Every piece of information we gather makes them more predictable." Her network tracked Devourer movements, analyzed their patterns, predicted their strategies. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than anything the Council had possessed. She reported directly to Daewon and Mira, providing daily updates. "They're building something," she said during one briefing. "Large structures in the outer rim. We don't know what they're for yet." "Find out," Daewon said. "We need to know what we're facing." Weeks passed. The new ships rolled out of shipyards. Mixed-species military units completed training. The alliance grew stronger, but tensions remained. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some species resented human influence. Some commanders bristled at taking orders from former myths. Change was necessary, but it wasn't easy. Daewon spent long nights dealing with complaints and disputes. He missed the simplicity of being a soldier. Now he was a diplomat, a politician, a symbol. It exhausted him. Hana found him one night in his quarters, staring at reports he'd read 3 times already. "You need to rest," she said. "I'll rest when the war is over." "That's what you said before Thaxia." Hana sat down beside him. "You can't save everyone by working yourself to death." "I know, but every decision I make affects billions of lives. What if I choose wrong? Then you adapt and choose better next time. That's what we teach everyone else. Why don't we apply it to ourselves? Daewon smiled slightly. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too busy fighting to notice. The moment of peace was interrupted by an alarm. An emergency transmission from Yuna. We know what they're building, she said, her face serious on the screen. It's a weapon. Something massive. If they complete it, they can destroy entire planets from across the system. The council convened immediately. Yuna presented her findings. The weapon was nearly complete. In 3 months, maybe less. The Devourers would have the power to annihilate worlds without ever landing troops. We have to destroy it before they finish, Mira said. A strike team. Fast and precise. It's deep in enemy territory, Bourne pointed out. Surrounded by their fleet. Suicide mission. Unless we make them think we're attacking somewhere else, Daewon said thoughtfully. He pulled up star maps studying the Devourer positions. A feint. A large assault on this sector here. While they respond to that, a small team hits the weapon. How small? Mira asked. 20 ships. 50 soldiers. Fast in, fast out. It's risky, everything is risky. But if that weapon becomes operational, we've already lost. The plan was approved. Mira would lead the main assault with 300 ships. Daewon would lead the strike team. Ji-won volunteered to come along with his best engineers. Boren insisted on bringing his warriors. You need people who know how to wreck things, he said. That's us, they spent 2 weeks preparing. The strike team practiced the mission over and over. Every contingency, every backup plan, every possible disaster. They couldn't afford mistakes. The night before departure, the entire strike team gathered. Human, Velkari, Thaxian, Rylan, a dozen species united by common purpose. Daewon stood before them. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. Some of us might not come back. But if we succeed, we save countless lives. We prove that this alliance can do anything, that we're stronger together than any enemy. For the alliance, someone shouted. For the galaxy, others responded. The next morning, they departed. Mira's fleet went first, attacking Devourer positions on the far side of their territory. It was a massive assault, impossible to ignore. The Devourers responded exactly as predicted, sending most of their fleet to defend. That's when Daewon's strike team moved. They used new ship designs that could mask their signatures. They traveled through uncharted space, avoiding detection. After 5 days, they reached the weapon site. It was enormous. A structure the size of a small moon, bristling with defenses. Hundreds of Devourer ships guarded it. That's more than we expected, Ji-won said quietly. When has anything been easy? Daewon replied. Execute the plan. The strike team split into 3 groups. One created a distraction, drawing off the defenders. Another attacked the weapon's shield generators. The third, led by Daewon, went for the weapon itself. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Soldiers died, but they pushed forward, using every trick they'd learned. Ji-won's team reached the shield generators and planted demolition charges. Shields down in 30 seconds. Daewon's group flew through the gap, landing directly on the weapon's surface. They cut through the hull and entered the structure. Inside was a nightmare of alien technology. The weapon's core pulsed with destructive energy. Devourer defenders attacked from every direction. Plant the charges, Daewon ordered. We have 10 minutes. The soldiers fought through corridors, racing against time. Ji-won set explosives at critical points, calculating exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage. 5 minutes left. 3, 1, everyone out. Now, Daewon shouted. They ran back to their ships, firing behind them. The Devourers pursued, realizing too late what was happening. The strike team's ships launched just as the charges detonated. The weapon's core went critical, tearing the entire structure apart. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. They lost 6 ships in the escape.